Hello, welcome to the Rise of China. Today's topic is the United States Chip Alliance collapse. Many countries to increase China's chip production capacity. China's chip development ushered in great hope. However, this is the United States does not want to see things. In order to stop the progress of China's chip industry, the United States did not hesitate to unite multiple parties to form a chip alliance, is bound to the international status in the field of manufacturing to fight to the hand. On the one hand, the United States united Japan, South Korea, and TSMC in the semiconductor field to master the initiative of raw materials. On the other hand, the United States to increase chip production capacity, trying to further grasp more market share as a way to contain the progress of China's chip industry, but the results have never expected. The back of what happened to the United States are incredible. That is, China is not only not contained by the United States, and even a major breakthrough in chip technology, chip production capacity has also been rapid growth. These years is undoubtedly the most shocking years in the technology industry. The past major global technology giants work closely together, and even so born a lot of global companies, but also make our lives more wonderful. However, these years the United States for the countries of the technology giants to suppress more and more obvious, especially for the Chinese chip industry. It has long been exposed the wolf ambition. Unilateral restrictions and sanctions is not too much. They even formed a new chip alliance, trying to grasp the market initiative by expanding production capacity, such as the United States joint Japan to start in-depth cooperation in the supply of raw materials for chips, invited TSMC to build a factory in the United States in an attempt to improve the U.S. domestic high-end chip production capacity, but also to pull together South Korea. Samsung intends to form a force to contain the Chinese chip, but unfortunately their plans have now completely fizzled. So why say so? How the U.S. chip alliance plan is a complete failure. In fact, looking at the global chip market landscape today, has long been not the United States alone, such as China's Semiconductor Manufacturing International has been firmly in the hands of the 28nm mature process market, which is currently the world's largest chip market demand. So the United States see no need to compete in this area. They will reach out to the high-end chip industry, which is currently targeting the market for processes below 14 nanometers, on the one hand, by the ban on the sale of 14 nanometers chip-related lithography equipment, on the one hand, the ban on the sale of related high-end chips to China. The purpose is very obvious, that is, to make us no 14 nanometers chip production capacity. Not only imports cannot get these chips, and even their own cannot produce these chips, but the United States ignored the important point, that is, China is not the previous technology backward countries. The United States more than once on the chip semiconductor industry. Frequent changes to the rules led to many U.S. companies also suffered a backlash, but the United States did not stop action because of this, but again and again to expand the scope of the chip rules. There is new news that the United States intends to introduce new rules to take new restrictions on memory chips and logic chips below 14 nanometers. After the news came, the share price of U.S. core companies plummeted. What happened? The U.S. is bent on going its own way. Where do U.S. companies go from here? The forces work against each other, and so do the rules set by the U.S. Seemingly restrictive behavior for some specific companies. In fact, the U.S. suppliers who are restricted from shipping are not well off. NVIDIA received a notice from the United States. Going forward cannot ship a 100H100, two high-end GPU chips at will. This makes NVIDIA's already depressed revenue again. Cannot ship the equivalent of the loss of potential sales. There is no benefit to revitalize the performance. There are also Keeley, Hanlon, and other U.S. equipment suppliers also received news that the ban on arbitrary shipments of chip manufacturing equipment from 10 nanometers to 14 nanometers. These situations are there for all to see. Under the U.S. rules, U.S. companies' revenue has been significantly affected. For example, NVIDIA's second quarter net profit plunged 72%, Intel's second quarter net profit fell 109% year-on-year, the worst record in nearly 20 years. The discerning eye can see that the U.S. companies are having a hard time. if not for the rules affecting the freedom of U.S. companies to ship, it is estimated that in the consumer market can achieve greater sales. But what people did not expect is that the U.S. companies turn a blind eye to the loss of U.S. companies and continue to take action. According to news coming from the U.S. media, the United States plans to issue new restrictive rules, or will prohibit U.S. suppliers to freely provide equipment for the production of DRAM and NAND chips, if the provision of 18 nanometers DRAM chips, 14 nanometers logic chips and other products need to obtain permission. The United States has set its sights on the field of memory chips. Don't look just memory chips, but nowadays all kinds of terminal equipment, high-tech industries cannot be separated from the support of memory chips. So the United States to take action on the memory chip, but also prove the importance of such chips. After the news came out, U.S. stocks plunged on October 7th. Among them, chip giant AMD shares plunged 13.8%, evaporating $15.18 billion in market value. Apple also fell 3.67%, with market value evaporating $85.819 billion. The U.S. core giant was pitted by the rules, and what the U.S. did made U.S. companies pay, which I'm afraid is not the end, but a new beginning. The United States allows U.S. companies to drive backwards on the road of chip globalization. Want to achieve a happy ending is naturally not so easy. Now the U.S. also want to further expand the scope of restrictions, will only make more U.S. companies suffer from the chip rules backfire. According to a report released by research institutions, China's semiconductor manufacturing industry continues to improve the level of localization in etching, ion implantation, cleaning and other chip manufacturing steps. Some Chinese manufacturers can achieve the 28 nanometers process, or even 14 nanometers. Is expected to 2027, China's mature process node half of the equipment, raw materials from Chinese suppliers. Shanghai also announced some of the costs achieved by domestic chips, including the realization of 90 nanometers lithography, 14 nanometers chip mass production, large silicon wafers and other breakthroughs. It can be seen that domestic chips are continuing to move forward towards the distant future, increasing research and development efforts to break through against the trend. In the future, the process of improving the self-sufficiency rate of domestic chips that can be produced independently will gradually promote localized manufacturing. Chips cannot be separated from globalization. Even TSMC also need to purchase EUV lithography from the Netherlands, the purchase of photoresist from Japan, and EDA software is also from the United States. Lack of support for the globalization of the industry chain is like a clever woman cannot cook without rice. The United States took the exact opposite path of chip globalization, with huge subsidies to try to focus the resources of the chip industry in the United States, thinking that this will promote the rise of the chip ontology. But I wonder if the United States has thought, even if the supply side of the supply level and a large number of chip production capacity, without the support of the consumer market, how to deal with the chips made. NVIDIA spent a huge investment in research and development, design a 100H100 chips, and spend a lot of money to find a foundry processing. The results of the United States said cannot be sold. Production of more chips, if you leave the consumer market, it is equivalent to spend this money in vain. I guess we can only find ways to improve the sales of secondary non-restricted products, or find a larger consumer market. Otherwise the role of the rules, U.S. companies will only be a disconnect with the original consumer market. And to break this wall, it is not the U.S. companies can decide. Standing in the perspective of the consumer market, cannot buy the desired chip, the best choice is to build their own. With self-reliance, self-sufficiency to solve the market demand, and so on to achieve the ultimate breakthrough, others then do not sell chips, is their loss. Of course, taking this path requires a lot of effort. Talent, market, capital and so on are indispensable, and look forward to a successful ice-breaking results. Data for the first half of this year, China's chip exports grew by more than 20% to August. China's chip exports further increased to 180 billion. The number of chips imported into China during the same period was about 369.5 billion, showing that China's chip exports have been more than half of the imports. With China's chip imports decreased, as well as China's chip exports increased, the global chip market has also changed, the chip from undersupply to oversupply. The chip thus entered the downward phase, at which time the foreign media found that Chinese chips have a unique competitive advantage, that is, the cost. Previously, a Chinese chip company said its chip prices are only a quarter of similar chips in the United States, which has driven down the global price of chips to solid-state drives. For example, in 2019 Samsung's 1 terabyte solid-state drive priced at 899 yuan, and now with the listing of Chinese-made solid-state drives, 1 terabyte solid-state drive prices have fallen to 299 yuan. 3 years past, the price of solid-state drives plummeted by 2/3.